Amen. All right. Hello, Jacob. The letter to the church at Philadelphia. This is technically week 11. I've kind of lost track a little. I keep having to recount because we've been skipping some weeks for events. But we have been through the letter to the church at Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, and today, the church everyone wants to be, Philadelphia, the faithful church. Trisha, if you'll pull up map 1, photo 1, which is the map. All right, we've got Patmos there in the water, the top part of the screen. We've done Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis. We're on to Philadelphia, and then next week will be the last letter, and then we'll wrap all the letters up and then move on to the really fun stuff. All right. The founding of the ancient city of Philadelphia. There was a Greek king of Pergamon named Eumenes II. Please remember that I will be butchering all of these names. So if you have a better pronunciation, please share, because I've been even listening to like Greek, how they pronounce things, and I just can't seem to remember them all. So Eumenes II, who had a brother named Attalus II, who acted as his general. Attalus II was famously loyal to his brother, so he was given the name Philadelphos. Attalus II, Philadelphos, literally means Attalus the brother loving. Philadelphos is Greek for brother loving, which is a weird way of saying it. In modern days, we would say brotherly love. So these two brothers were so loving towards each other and loyal that the brother Attalus got the name Philadelphos at the end. At some point shortly after 189 BC, Eumenes II founded a city in the region of Lydia in what is now Western Turkey and named it Philadelphia in honor of his beloved brother. So this next picture, slide 2. This is the brother. This is Attalus II, Philadelphus. So he's the reason why the city was named Philadelphia. It was located roughly 70 miles east of the Greek city of Smyrna and on the northeast slope of Mount Tmolus. Eumenes II was attacked near Syra and was thought at the time to have been killed. Attalus II, Philadelphus, became king and immediately married his brother's widow, Stratonice. When Eumenes returned, because he hadn't actually died, he had just been needing to recover, his brother was so loyal that he ceded power back to him, divorced Stratonice, and gave her back to Eumenes. So we've got the brother of the king, thought the king was dead. He took power, married the widow. The true king comes back because he hadn't actually died. Remember, this wasn't the age of text messages. It took a long time for messages to get from place to place, especially if someone was injured and not in a place where they could get a message out. So then Attalus was so faithful and loyal to his brother that he returned the wife and returned the kingdom, and they kept on going like nothing had happened. Okay, photo 3. This is the great Eumenes on the left. That's one of his. It's like a cast bronze or something. But the coins on the right were actually issued. This particular coin has the face of Eumenes on the front. On the back is some Greek mythological characters that were brothers. So it's kind of highlighting the relationship between Eumenes and his brother Attalus. Attalus had these coins commissioned when he thought his brother was dead as a tribute to him. And this coin, making it a very rare coin, because when the king came back, they weren't issuing these coins anymore. This particular coin in 2013 was auctioned for 170,000 euros. So it's a very rare, very special coin, and it is all involved in this crazy story of these brothers. So when Eumenes finally really did die in 159 BC, his brother Attalus II, Philadelphus, succeeded him, since Eumenes' own son, Attalus III, who was named after his uncle, was too young. Did poor Stratonice get a moment to be a widow? Nope. Was Attalus III spared from the weirdness of his uncle marrying his mom again? Nope. Attalus II remarried Stratonice. The son of Eumenes and Stratonice, Attalus III, was the last king of Pergamon. He bequeathed his entire kingdom to the Roman Republic in his will when he died in 133 BC. We've talked about this before. He had no heirs. I have a feeling that he was a messed up kid after all this stuff. I'm making assumptions here because I don't know why he was childless. But after your dad almost died and your uncle married your mom and then divorced your mom when your dad returned, and then your dad finally really dies, and then, your uncle again takes over and marries your mom. That's some dysfunction there. A little bit crazy. Maybe we should let widows be widows. That's my advice. Anyway, we have a town in what is now Western Turkey, that was named Philadelphia because of these two brothers. So when William Penn needed a name for a city in Pennsylvania, and he decided it was going to be a wonderful, loving place, he named it Philadelphia. So we have a Philadelphia in our country, and it all stems back to these guys, and actually an even worse story earlier of another Greek king who married his actual full sister, and that was the kind of brother love that nobody wanted. So this is, at least by the time we got to Eumenes and Attalus, I'm telling you, history is crazy. At least it was a more healthy love, even though he did marry the widow of his brother. Anyway, that's beside the point. This is a picture of what they think Philadelphia in Roman times looked like. Picture 4. So this is this Archaeology Illustrated is really cool. They've got all kinds of stuff. So they've kind of, based on the ruins and the topography, they kind of rebuild what they think the cities looked like. So always walls, because in this era you had to really protect your cities. The city of Philadelphia was well situated on an imperial post road from Rome and Traus to Pergamus, Sardis, and the interior of Phrygia. It was therefore very prosperous because it was a gateway to other locations. The area was well favored for wine production, and Dionysus, the god of wine, was the principal deity. The Romans used Philadelphia as an outreach to the Greek culture, just as the church there was an outreach to the culture of their day. The region is volcanic, and the city suffered repeatedly from earthquakes. It was almost completely destroyed in the disastrous earthquake of AD 17, which devastated Sardis and 10 other cities. Tremors were reported for years afterwards. So imagine, we have an earthquake. You might have here, like out in California, you might have a couple aftershocks. Is that what they're called? For years, that one earthquake caused tremors. So there was some kind of craziness with the volcanoes and fault lines, whatever is there, caused there to be. It disrupted civic and economic systems there for more than 20 years, that one earthquake. Philadelphia had several name changes. It was named Neo Caesarea, or New City of Caesar, in honor of Tiberius when he provided generous financial relief after that earthquake in AD 17. It was changed to Flavia in the time of Vespasian, as it was his family's name. The changes were short-lived, though. The original name of Philadelphia soon revived, and it remained so until the Ottomans conquered the city in 1390. They renamed the city Ala Sahir, meaning City of Allah. And in photo 5 is an engraving of what was there in 1863. There we go. There's not a lot of ruins here. We'll get to the pictures here. Go ahead to the next photo 6. This is today, Ala Sahir. The current population as of 2022 is about 104,000. There's no ruins that remain at the time that John wrote the letter on behalf of Jesus to Philadelphia. I couldn't find any traces of ruins. They're all underneath, probably. And then photos 7 and 8. This is ruins of a basilica. St. John's Basilica was built in the 6th century. So quite a bit later, we have this place, and then there's one more picture. There's like this cool little topping to a capital of a column. But that was from the 6th century. So there was a Christian presence there because there was a Catholic basilica. But to this day, again, the Christian population is very small. All right, the letter to the church at Philadelphia, Revelation 3, 7 through 13. We'll read the whole thing and then we'll break it down. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things say he who is holy, he who is true, he who has the key of David, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts and no one opens. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. For you have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. Indeed, I will make those in the synagogue of Satan, who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I have loved you. Because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial, which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. Behold, I am coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And I will write on him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. All right, the letter, verse 7. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write. So we have Philadelphia. The meaning of the city name is brotherly love. Sounds better than brother loving. So we're going to stick with brotherly love there. At the title of Christ, these things say he who is holy. He who is holy. In Hebrew, the word kadosh means holy, but its root meaning is separate or distinct. This implies that something holy is set apart for a sacred purpose, separate from the common or profane. The Lord is declared holy in Revelation 6:10, Leviticus 11:44, 21:8, Isaiah 57:15, in the Song of the Seraphim in Isaiah 6:3. He was declared holy at his birth, Isaiah 6:3, at his death, Acts 2:27, in his present priestly office, Hebrews 7:25. I can give you these references if you would like them later. The holiness of God is an attribute that should inspire reverence in each of us. As we've been studying the names of God, there's so much more of this study has just been even more interesting as we're doing our home group study. So if you're not in home group, get in home group. You've missed it this year, let me tell you. All right, that was a commercial break. All right, the next part of the title of Christ, he who is true. In Greek, alethinos means true, real, or genuine. It is often used to contrast something authentic with an imitation or semblance of it, and it emphasizes that a thing is exactly as it is named. Jesus is declaring himself the truth, the genuine article, the authentic, in a sea of imitations. In my Bible reading this morning, there was Bar Jesus. The disciples encountered, or the apostles encountered a guy who was Bar Jesus, pretending to be this, great guy who was not. Jesus is true. This is the polar opposite of Allah of the Quran, who is capricious. And I have some sections of the Quran. Surah 799 states, no one feels secure from the plan of Allah except the losing people, which basically means only losing people feel secure that Allah will not turn on them or trick them. The Arabic word makr, translated as plan, can also mean deception. A literal English translation of another part of the Quran, Surah 354, describes Allah as the best of cheaters and deceivers. Definitions aside, here's some examples. Allah makes it appear that Jesus died on the cross when he supposedly didn't. In 4:157, he deceives Muhammad about the number of enemy troops at the Battle of Badr. In 8:43 and 44, he instructs Satan on how to trick, lure, and assault people and leads people astray from the truth. Our Jesus is true. And the city now called the city of Allah, they're serving a God who is a capricious liar, cheater, manipulator, deceiver. Oh, Lord, come to them. Jesus, keep coming to them. Jesus is coming to Muslim people in dreams. And we have our own missionaries are going to try to help line up what people are dreaming with who they're seeing in their dreams. Our God delights in truth, unlike all the counterfeits. He delights in making and keeping his promises. His character is the bedrock of his kingship. So he is holy, he who is true. Number 3, he who has the key of David. And this is an interesting phrase, and we're going to have to go back to Isaiah to understand it. This is Isaiah 22. There was an issue with a steward. He ends up being replaced, but I'm going to just read it to you instead of trying to Becca-ize it. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Go say to this steward, to Shebna, the palace administrator, what are you doing here, and who gave you permission to cut out a grave for yourself here, hewing your grave on the height and chiseling your resting place in the rock? Beware, the Lord is about to take firm hold of you and hurl you away, you mighty man. He will roll you up tightly like a ball. I imagine like someone rolling up a hedgehog and then rolling them. I don't know why. He will roll you up tightly like a ball and throw you into a large country. There you will die, and there the chariots you were so proud of will become a disgrace to your master's house. I will depose you from your office, and you will be ousted from your position. And here's where the part really comes into play. In that day I will summon my servant Eliakim, son of Hilkiah. I will clothe him with your robe and fasten your sash around him and hand your authority over to him. He will be a father to those who live in Jerusalem and to the people of Judah. I will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. What he opens, no one can shut. What he shuts, no one can open. I will drive him like a peg into a firm place. He will become a seat of honor for the house of his father. All the glory of his family will hang on him, its offspring and offshoots, all of its lesser vessels, from the bowls to all the jars. So Eliakim here is a foreshadowing of the Messiah, who would be the rightful heir to the throne of David and hold ultimate authority over God's kingdom. So Eliakim was given a heavy key, which was on a loop slung over his shoulder, and it indicated that he had the power to grant or deny audience with the king. He alone could provide access to the king, this Eliakim. So who alone, for us, provides access to God? So here's Jesus in Revelation saying, I'm the one who holds the key of David. And in order to really grasp the fullness of that, we have to look at Eliakim. Bearing the weight of authority on the shoulder also reminds us of this verse in Isaiah 9, 6, and 7. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Isaiah continues after the verses about Eliakim with another prophecy, and this is a messianic prophecy of the Messiah being cut off. Verse 25, in that day declares the Lord Almighty, the peg driven into the firm place will give way. It will be sheared off and will fall, and the load hanging on it will be cut down. The Lord has spoken. Also, your ears should have perked up a little when it said what he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. That's part of the title Jesus is using here. The fourth part of his title, he who opens and no one shuts, and shuts, no one opens. This is from the Berean Study Bible. This phrase underscores Christ's absolute authority and sovereignty. It implies that Jesus has the ultimate control over opportunities and destinies, particularly concerning salvation and the doors to the kingdom of heaven. This assurance would have been comforting to the Philadelphian church, affirming that their faithfulness would be rewarded and that no external force could alter Christ's divine will. This is not just a comfort for the Philadelphians. This is a comfort for us. Jesus has the key, and we can trust him. Nothing's going to thwart his plans. Verse 8, we'll get into the commendations. I know your works. This should be familiar by now. Jesus has said this to all the churches so far. He's commending the works of the Philadelphians. Jesus immediately makes personal the title that he used of himself in verse 7. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one can shut it. Doors are a common theme in the Bible. God himself closed the door of the ark 7 days before the flood in Genesis 7:16. Paul speaks of doors opened by God for ministry in 1 Corinthians 16:9, 2 Corinthians 2:12, Colossians 4:3. Jesus declared himself the door in John 10:7 and 9. And the door was shut to the unready in the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25, 1 through 10, He continues the commendation. You have a little strength, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. They were loyal and steadfast ambassadors as they kept his word. They did not deny his name. What is the highest name of Jesus? Philippians 2:9-10 states that God exalted Jesus and gave him the name above all names, so that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. He's got the name above all names. The phrase signifies Jesus' supreme authority and his position as the Most High, a title also associated with God in the Hebrew Bible as El Elyon, or God Most High. If you want to really quickly figure out if you're in a cult, here's your clue. They will deny the deity of Jesus Christ. If they try to tell you that Jesus is Satan's brother, run. If they try to tell you Jesus isn't God, God the Son, run. You're in a cult. Verse 9, continuing the commendation. Indeed, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet and to know that I have loved you. The synagogue of Satan was referenced in another letter that we've talked about. Does anybody remember which one? Okay, I'm going to. It's second book, Smyrna. Smyrna, we saw a reference to the synagogue of Satan. This is what it says in Revelation 2. I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. There's a lot of times that we see Jesus even calling people Satan or the devil. He famously said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Remember all this? So this is not new language for Jesus. However, what is new is him discussing people who say they are Jews and are not. We've talked about this before. Some scholars believe this is a reference to legalistic Judaizers. Some believe the synagogue of Satan refers to a group within the ancient Jewish communities who were hostile to early Christians. Please remember that in the early days, the apostles did not view themselves as outside of Judaism. They were bringing in something new to Judaism, not trying to leave it and make their own thing. They were still speaking in the temples. My Bible reading right now is all about Paul speaking in the synagogues. So they were not trying to evict themselves from Judaism. So at the day, they're still very much involved in Jewish life. The phrase describes a false or unfaithful religious institution that presents itself as God's people, but instead opposes God's truth. We also have to consider today that there are people who are claiming the Jewish promises that are not Jews. They are known as Reconstructionists, or those that believe in replacement theology. Basically, that because Israel failed, that God has forsaken the promises he made to them and instead bestowed those promises upon the church. They believe the church has replaced Israel and is therefore entitled to all the promises God made to her. This means that the God that they serve is a liar, unfortunately, because God delights in making and keeping his promises. When God cut a covenant, Abraham was asleep. God walked in between the cut carcasses. You remember this? It was actually a pot of fire that went through it. When you made that kind of covenant, you were saying, in order for me to break this covenant, if I break this covenant, I will become like these dead animals. So it wasn't, Abraham wasn't even involved. God made a covenant with himself. And then when humanity, of course, continued to fail, God himself, because that covenant was broken, became like those animals, and he was sacrificed for us. So the God who made a covenant with himself as Abraham slept is not going to go back on his promise to Abraham's descendants. So I would be very cautious in thinking that you have replaced the Jewish people, the ancestral people from Abraham on. God has a purpose for Israel. He has a purpose for the church. They started differently, they end differently, and we can be confident that we serve a God who makes and keeps his promises. If Israel could lose out, then so could we. So we are grafted into a tree. If we cut the tree off we're standing on, we're in trouble. He didn't grow a new tree for us. He grafted us into a tree that already existed. If you smite the tree, all the branches that have been grafted in are in trouble. So I would just caution you, our God is not a liar. The father of lies is Satan. The synagogue of Satan is real. And there are people who, that's my personal theory on the synagogue of Satan today, is people who are trying to replace Israel. That opens the door for anti-Semitism, by the way. Not that we agree with everything that the country of Israel is doing today. You can be for God's people and not necessarily agree with everything a government is doing. So there's a way that we can be mature in how we handle this situation. I would also draw your attention to this, 1 John 3:10. By this, and this is a discussion about who's the children of God and who's the devil, who's the devil's children. By this it is evident who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother. And what does Philadelphia mean? We need to love our brothers both in the church and in the Jewish community. We're grafted into their tree. Continuing, indeed, I will make them come and worship before your feet and to know that I have loved you. Some Bible translations use worship here and some use bow down. I personally have an issue with the Greek word here being translated to worship. Please remember the Bible was written without error, but the translations are not perfect, because it's almost impossible to completely perfectly translate from one language, culture, time into a completely different language, custom, culture, and time. But the Bible as is written is without error, but sometimes the people translating can make errors. The word here that was translated in worship in the version we're using today is proskuneo, means to worship, to bow down, or to prostrate oneself. Considering that worship belongs to God alone, I personally believe this should be translated as bow down instead, as in a physical act of lowering oneself in humble submission. I don't believe Jesus would make humans worship other humans, because that is sin in the Bible. So I have an issue with the translations that say worship at your feet. I think it should be instead humility, that they got it wrong. So that's my 2 cents. It may only be worth 2 cents, but there you go. I do believe that those people, the synagogue of Satan people, they're going to be humbled and realize that they were incorrect. Verse 10, because you have kept my command to persevere, I also will keep you from the hour of trial, which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. This is an incredibly important promise. One of the most important truths in the scripture that had been lost sight of for centuries was the Lord's return for his church. The evangelical movement of the early 19th century really brought focus back to this. Early in the letter, Jesus references the key of David. Not only will Jesus sit on the throne of David, but David was a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ. So I want you to think about this. David was a shepherd. He was anointed king of Israel and was then exiled from his kingdom. He took refuge in the cave of Adullam. He was refused by his own people, and he gathered around him men in debt, in danger, and the discontented. He transformed them into mighty men, and he ultimately left Adullam for his crowning. You can read this in 1 and 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles. Think about this. Jesus is our good shepherd. He was anointed king before he was born. He was rejected by his people. He gathered around him some debtors, those in danger of hell, and those discontented with the world. He was exiled physically from his kingdom. And as David left his exile in Adullam to be crowned king, Jesus will leave heaven to be crowned king here. Jesus is coming back. The verse points out this, and this is, again, getting into fun stuff. I also will keep you from the hour of trial which shall come upon the whole world to test those who dwell on the earth. Now, there's definite articles being used here in the Greek, and it's very specific. Greek tesauros, the time, the season, the hour, and ton perasmon, the trial, the temptation, the testing, that adversity, the tribulation. Definite articles in the Greek are very specific. So I think we could probably better view this as I will also keep you from the hour of the trial, which will come upon the entire world. So he says from, I will keep you from. From in the Greek here is ek, or out of. When referencing a location, it literally means out of a place. I will keep you out of the hour of the trial which shall come upon the whole world. Upon the whole world, we're going to be reading about this in Revelation 6 through 19. It details this catastrophic time for the earth. What is the purpose of this time? Jesus said it, to test those who dwell on the earth. So who are the earth dwellers? Who dwells on the earth? This is a distinctive group that we're going to see throughout this book. Earth dwellers are people who are identified with the world, worldlings, persistent unbelievers. We, those who are redeemed by Jesus Christ, are not earth dwellers. What does the Bible say we are? Aliens, strangers, foreigners. We're pilgrims passing through. This is not our home. Aliens, we are just aliens who are not home yet. My kids are like, are aliens real? I'm like, what you're thinking of is actually demonic, but we are the aliens. When we're redeemed by Jesus, this is no longer our homeland. We belong off-world. Isn't that great? See, it's fun. Verse 11, behold, I'm coming quickly. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. Notice here that there are no concerns. He goes straight to the exhortation. Hold fast to what you have, that no one may take your crown. Crowns are mentioned in 2 letters. Can you guess in which other letter a crown is mentioned? We actually already talked about it today when we talked about the other letter where the synagogue of Satan is mentioned. What's the other letter where synagogue of Satan is mentioned? Smyrna. This is also the only other letter that mentions a crown. And Smyrna is the only other letter with no concerns. So there's a lot of parallels. We know Smyrna was under persecution. Their message from Jesus was just hold on, keep going, guys. And then we have this one, hold fast is the message. Basically, you're doing great. Keep hold of it so no one steals your crown. By the way, you can't steal a crown which doesn't already belong to you. No one could steal a crown if you didn't already have it. So that's fun. Hold fast is the primary admonition. Verse 12, we have the promise to the overcomer. He who overcomes, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go out no more. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write on him my new name. There's a lot of my gods here. And I want you to recall the other time when Jesus was using that phrase, he cried out, my God. Right, because he was not there for him. He was taking our place when he was calling, because usually he would say, my Father. So here we have a lot of my gods referencing us back to how we even get to have a new name, how we even get to be a part of this new thing. And being called a pillar, I want you to think about if you were in an area where earthquakes were so disruptive that it caused 20 years of issues, how comforting it would be that you were going to be a pillar. I think it would have meant a lot to the Philadelphians who were, in the very recent future, had crazy amounts of, their city was almost destroyed less than 100 years before this letter was written, 20 years of economic issues, tremors for years. We know those weren't the only earthquakes, but hey, he's promising to make them pillars. That's a cool promise when you realize the area was so full of earthquakes and issues. He will be a pillar forever in the temple of God, with the name of God written on him, and the name of the city of God with Jesus' new name written on him. That's some good promises there. Verse 13 is our closing. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Again, all the last 4 letters have the promise before the closing. In the first 3, the promise was after the closing. And we will wrap all that up after Laodicea. But next week will be the letter to Laodicea. Again, I'm probably butchering that, but you get what you get on pronunciations. We have 3 minutes. Any comments or questions about what we talked about today? This was a lot. I had to go quickly. And I didn't get to go as far as I wanted to, but we got time for that. The coins? Oh, yeah, the coins. It was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, in Sardis, I think we were talking about how they were the first minters of coins from the government. Yeah. So coins were not always used among humans, but in Sardis, they really was the place where the government started issuing coins. And then the coin today was just a very rare coin about the people we were talking about. 170,000 euros. That's a chunk of dollars right there. Yeah, you wouldn't find that in the parking lot. However, I did watch this documentary about when they found the lost king of England under a parking lot. Did anybody see that? So a few years ago, this lady was on this quest, and she was really bothered that they didn't know. I can't remember the king's name or who it was. I'm not English. I don't care that much. But they ended up, there was what they call a car park, which is we call a parking lot. They found the remains of one of the kings of England, and they got him out of there and buried him properly in an abbey somewhere. But it was crazy that people were just driving over this long lost king that they hadn't found the body. You can look it up. I forget who it was, but it was one of the kings, and they found him under a car park. So you never know. Over here, we don't have so much of that because we don't have that old of a civilizations. But everywhere in Israel, and if you start digging anywhere over there, you're going to find cool stuff, pottery and shards of stuff. So they're living on thousands of years of history. We only have a couple hundred, so it's not as exciting over here. Yeah. Yeah, which is cool, but not quite like columns from, 4,000 years ago or whatever. Maybe not that long, 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Anyway, that's it for today. It's 11, and I'm done. And thank you for being here.